Hey guys, what's going on? It's Nick here with Spark Gap Garage. Today I am working on my fiance's 2015 Buick Encore. I am probably getting the year wrong because I don't remember anything anymore. But yeah, so it is 25 degrees out. It's a little chilly, but we're gonna get this done. About a month ago I did the video on the rear brake pads. Now we're gonna be doing the front brake pads. And it's actually very simple. You don't need a special tool or anything for this. It's C-clamp or anything for the caliper pistons, but we'll get to that point here in a minute. But this is gonna be a step-by-step how-to video on how I'm gonna do it. And yes, let's start this. All right guys, so to begin with, what you want to do is make sure you block off one of your back wheels. This is a front wheel drive car for my model. However, you still want to block off any wheel. You just put a piece of wood or something on both sides of the tires here. I did mine on the passenger side, or I'm sorry, excuse me, driver's side rear. And then what you're going to do is get your lug nuts loosened up. I already went through that step. That way you don't watch me literally get red in the face because these are stuck on. But yep, so I already got those going. I'm going to head and pull these off. Already got them loosened up. Oop, missing a step, guys. Break them loose. Don't do what I'm doing yet. Break them loose. Now, go ahead and jack up your vehicle. I got my boss house here. You don't need the tires super far off the ground. If you got a lift, this would be a whole lot easier for you, but for my case, I am not using a lift. I'm not that rich, so I'm going to use my jack and jack stand. But what you're going to do is go ahead and take your lug nuts off now. This process might take a second, but bear with me. If you got an impact gun or anything, it'd be a whole lot faster. My impact guns are of course dead because I don't know how to charge things apparently. But we're gonna get all these lug nuts off and I'll show you the fast, quick way on replacing these brake pads. And this will also go for, of course that's stuck. Come on, get off. Thank you. I'll show you the process on different ways, what to check for, stuff like that. Oh, that's a different size. Yep. You can use sockets, ratchet, whatever you want. I'm using this tire iron here. Of course, that one's stuck too. Really. This is what happens when you just get out of winter and the things get stuck on, like mine. Now, sometimes, like my case, these are little caps like this. They kind of look like this that fit over your here, maybe you can see it. These are little caps that can fit over your lug nuts, and we'll see that here in a second when I actually pull off the lug nut. This is like a little cover, but water sometimes gets behind here and corrodes on, and then can actually make these swell up. So it can be a pain in the butt. So what you can do if it's not working out for you is get a socket the size of this. You know what size this is. Tap it on lightly with a hammer, and then you should be able to break her off. So we're gonna have to, for this one, because that cover came off, it's slightly smaller, but this is a 3/4 inch socket. I already did the other side, so I know what I'm doing. But it's there. So this is what I was talking about. This cup sleeve, if you will, just kind of slides over it, and that's what you're seeing here. This one actually snapped off, but that's whatever. Just a cover, just to make it look a little prettier. Okay, so now that you got this off, or the lug nuts, you can go ahead and pull your tire off, and now we can get to the money maker. All right, set her off to the side. So now you get to this point, what you're gonna do, I'll bring you in a little closer, see if we can do it. You got these two, I believe they're 10mm nuts on both sides connected to your sliders. I call them sliders. You're gonna remove these bolts. This is one way, and what that's gonna allow is just the caliper to be moved out of the way, and this is the method I'm gonna be doing. The other method is you could remove, I believe they're 18mm bolts. That is this entire bracket that includes your calipers, your brackets to hold on your metal shims here, plus your everything. It's just everything. You could do it that way, but I'm just gonna do it the quick and easy way, and hopefully these don't snap off because they are slightly old and rusty. But yep, we'll get to this point here right now. I'm gonna set you back down. Okay, so it is a 10mm. I have my sockets off to the side already prepped, and you can do it different ways. You can use a gun. I just use my hand because I want arthritis when I'm 90 years old, if I make it to 90, but we'll see. Same thing down here. So now that I got these broken loose, I will say this. Sometimes these sliders, you'll notice a hex on, like a head almost, that these bolts thread into. Those might want to spin as you're loosening these. Just grab a wrench or adjustable wrench on there just to hold it, but don't damage the boots. This rubber boot, you want that to stay intact because that'll allow or prevent moisture from getting in. Inside here is where that slider goes in and out. So now we can go ahead, excuse me, apparently I got the sniffles because, you know, 25 degrees and I like to work outside. So now you get your 10mm bolts out. Now you are to the point where you can get your caliper off. Now, a method I like to do, all my jack stands are currently being used by my my Chrysler 300 race car, Midnight Special. That's in the garage, so it's up on jacks. So you could use one of these guys. If you have another multiple or many of these, just go to a yard sale or something and get another one. Jack it up as far as you can, but basically the idea is you want to rest your caliper up on something that you know, that way your hoses don't get pinched. And I will say this is a good time to inspect. You know, look over everything. You know, are there deep grooves in your rotors? Is this backed off? You know, your axle nut. Just generally look it over. That could tell you conditions of, you know, your suspension, your brakes, you know, just different things that, you know, if you do, could save you money down the line. And, you know, it's a good part of preventative maintenance that I like to do. So, okay, now that we got my jack a mile high up in the air like this, and what I'm going to do is probably try to find my flathead screwdriver, or we'll just see if this will come off, which it won't. That's cool. What we're going to do is... just had it. Oh, there it is. Excuse me while I go walking, go get my flathead. Okay. So now that I'm back from my jog, just pry back on it. You don't have to be forceful with it. Just be gentle. And what that's going to do is separate your fingers, your caliper fingers and piston from your brake pads or shoes. I call them shoes. Just get in underneath both sides, work it loose. There we go. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and show you my method for, let's see if I got you on camera. Yep, okay. My method for, you gotta get this piston back inward. Now, if you've seen my previous video on the rear, you've seen that it's a different tool that basically it's instead of a piston that just slides in and out, the rear one's thread, which is kind of weird. It's a weird design. But for this case, there's different methods you can do. I like to spend money and on expensive things. These are really not that expensive, but this is actually a dual piston caliper piston tool that pushes it or forces it back in. But this works perfectly fine for the single. And what you're gonna do is, I'm gonna try to show this, is you're gonna try to get this face on this black finger lined up with one of your fingers and start cranking it. let's see if I can get you on the other side. Excuse me while I move you around. There we go. Okay, now that we're all seeing this. So what I'm gonna do is start squeezing this. Hopefully, you probably can't see it, but very slowly, that piston is actually going back into the caliper housing. And what could happen, and I probably should have shown you this to begin with, but what you should do, or I like to do, is crack your reservoir. This is your master cylinder reservoir. Crack the lid just a little bit, and you can see the fluid's already at the top. But basically put some rags under there, because what's happening is as that piston is going into the caliper housing, you're forcing that fluid back up into your master cylinder here. And if you don't do what I did like this, you'll make a mess like I did on the driver's side. So underneath the car I got a nice puddle of brake fluid. Yeah, we won't tell my wife though, or her fiance. But yeah, as this starts to come out, you can actually suck a little bit out, but that's fine. I'm just gonna go ahead and let it make a mess, but that's why you have the rags there. But yeah, just kind of back that off, let it just kind of rest on there. Okay, now that we're back to the fun part, we're going to continue squeezing on this until, I wouldn't say it stops all the way, but just to where you can see the edge of the boot get really close to the edge of the piston, and actually right there is where it stops. And then I'm just going to take the tool out, and now at this point what I'm going to do with this is kind of hide it over here for now. Make sure you don't kink any lines. You can use bungee cords, anything up here, tie it around the spring. Let's see if I can get you a little further back. There we go. You can bungee cord it up, but the caliper is ready for the reinstallation, so that's actually perfect. So now I'm going to bring you back to my other side. Oh, I just got my mother-in-law's license plate in there. Nice. Anyway, that's all right. So on this side, okay. So just like before, you're not going to care about these shoes unless all you're doing is replacing your caliper. If that's all you're doing, then try to save these shoes. But if you don't care about them like I do, and you'll see why here in a sec, literally just pry on them. Just careful not to gouge or cut into your rotor. Now, these brake pads are actually not all that bad. However, as you could probably tell, they're pretty much worn out. They wore very evenly all the way across, very smooth, which is nice because that tells me that there's no issues with the sliding mechanisms, the sliders. That would, any of these that bind up or stick could cause uneven wear, you know, like a kind of like a wedge looking thing. But we're going to go ahead and replace these because these are pretty much at the end of their life. You could go a little bit further. I don't. But you got that wear tab right there, and you can tell how close it is to the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and replace them. So a lot of people might reuse these. I personally don't reuse them because if you go to the store, they typically give you brand new ones. So, I mean, you could reuse them. They're not, it doesn't, you know, it's not bad to reuse them. But what I do, get them like that. Same thing up here. Like I said, I'm going to get arthritis when I'm 90, and I'm pretty thrilled about it, if you can't tell. But that's my life choices. So now the next thing, most of these kits will come with some sort of like brake, like a brake lubricant. Basically what that is for, or a grease, is you put on the faces where the brake shoes rest into, and that helps with this sliding back and forth, and that helps keeping your brakes from dragging or wearing uneven. So what I'm going to go ahead and do off camera, just because you don't need to see it, is rub some grease, some brake pad grease, that should come with the kit. It's like a little gel. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to like AutoZone or O'Reilly's or whatever store you go to and ask for some brake grease, and they should know. But yeah, you'll rub it in there, both sides. So this side will sit like this. This one will sit up there like that. And then we'll do the same thing on the caliper piston. now that it's retracted in on the face of it, and I will show you this. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real fast. Now sometimes also, I will point this out, sometimes there will be some brake dust buildup or rust or something. Just take a flathead screwdriver or a file or something. Don't go crazy with it, but like just get all that dust out. This is actually not all that bad. You're just gonna push it down. That one's done. If you happen to have anti-seize, I would use that personally, because that just prevents all these metal components from binding up and stuff. So now that we're having fun, perfect. So that one's on there like this. Now I'm gonna take the caliper out and I'll show you just me wiping the lubricant on the caliper. So all you're gonna do is take it just around the face. You don't need to go crazy with it. And what this is gonna help do is keep that contact between the back of the brake pad and the caliper from seizing together. And as you can tell, that's nice and anti-seize. This is anti-seize or greased, however you want to call it. So now we're ready for the shoes. Now I'm unwinding this brake pad kit that I got. So you can tell that there's two different types of shoes. Now, one of them has these two rivets that holds this entire brake shoe assembly together, and you can see the rivets are out here. The one that doesn't have the rivets on the inside, that's the one that you want on your, that's the one you want connected or making contact with your piston, your caliper piston. Reason being, if your caliper piston makes contact with these, you're just gonna force the rivets out and then your brake shoes are gonna fall apart, and that's not a good day. So what I'm gonna do is start with the outer one, the one that should look like this, and you're just gonna line her up. This can be a little tricky. Just maneuvering it in place is all that you gotta do. Come on. This is the fun part right here. Sometimes you might need a little help with a little screwdriver, and that's fine. Really. There we go. Okay, so now that we got the outer one in, now we can go ahead and put this one in. Now you notice you got that nice new wear tab, how much meat there is on this. And it's the same process. I'm probably gonna fight with it again, so I'll probably either speed this up or just skip over it. That way you're not just laughing at me. Or you can laugh at me, I mean, that's fine. I'd laugh at me. You kidding me? I'd laugh at me all the time. Okay, now that I'm done having the battle of my life over here, you can see, I'm gonna bring you in here. You can see these little tabs. Here, I'll show you. You got these little tabs here that'll sit up in those brackets, and that's why you grease or throw anti-seize up in the brackets, because it'll help slide the pads like this to, you know, retract and when you let off the brake. Okay, now that I'm done fighting with that, bring you back down. Now we can go ahead and put the caliper back on. This is just a matter of doing this. I will say this, it doesn't hurt putting a little, I'm gonna pinch the hose doing it, a little anti-seize on the back side of this, and I'm actually gonna go ahead and do this on the little fingers, the two little fingers, these guys. So the side that actually makes contact with the brake shoe. I'm gonna go ahead and do that too. It just makes it all that much better as far as disassembly for next time or the next guy. So you don't need a whole lot, just on the mating surfaces. Now you guys can get this this Loctite online. I ended up ordering some online. So make sure your hose is not twisted. Almost did. And you should be able to go ahead. God, I can't speak. And put these on. Okay, so I'm running into an issue here, and I kind of figured this was gonna happen. My sliders are being a little grumpy right now, which is fine. That's okay. All right, guys, so we're back. I ended up having to cut a video short for a second there because I was having issues with this slider, which was the bottom one. This one, I can't speak, Jesus. I broke loose. Now that is a lot better. This one, if you can tell, has a lot of this like almost like dirt sand build up on it. I'm gonna have to get that off there. It's like a rusty nastiness. This is a good time too to point out that this boot, you definitely don't want to rip this because this prevents a lot of that moisture and water from getting in. I'm not entirely sure what happened here as far as moisture. Something got in there. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and install the boots. For these, you can see these are two different sides. This side is what actually slips onto the collar here. So let's see if we can get her on. Perfect. So that's on, but I'm gonna go ahead and take it back off so I can show you guys how to clean out the bore of where that sits in. This is all that crap and stuff that was in there. That was a smart idea, right? Okay. I'm gonna take this back off, maybe. There we go. You just take if you don't have a drill, just get some sort of wire bristle thing like this. Okay, that should be 1,000 times better. So now you can see that moves in and out freely. I'll wipe this down again. Now you can shoot brake dust. You can shoot brake cleaner inside the bore here of this bracket where these sliders go into to get all the residue and stuff out. But just make sure all that brake dust gets out before you reapply or reinstall this. Now I'm gonna use my anti-seize here all over this because I don't want that to happen again. You definitely don't want these to rust up because that will cause uneven wear and it could actually pull your vehicle. It can cause a pulling of your vehicle. Yep. So we'll go ahead. Oops, missing a step. Let's go ahead and reinstall the boot, which is which is that side on here. There we go. Kingpin, slider pin in, and it'll just fit on. And now you can see how that moves freely. This one moves freely. Before, this one literally could not spin it at all. I had to use my extended handled ratchet wrench to break it free, and it finally broke free. So in the process of getting those out, I also had to remove, or they fell out, my my brake pads. So now you get to watch me fight those again. So that's part of the fun, right? I'm probably gonna zoom all this up. You know, for the amount that I've done, there we go. I was gonna say the amount of these that I've done, this should not be that hard. But for the new guys that have never done this before, it could be a little challenging. Point the curvature of the brake pad, brake shoe, with the curvature of the rotor. Come on. You literally just went in. There we go. Okay, that was a lot better than my first attempt. Okay, and I got my caliper resting over here. I definitely don't recommend doing that, but I was getting a little frustrated with the sliders. Okay, so now that we're done fighting these sliders, we can go ahead and throw the caliper back on, and I'm sure I'm getting in the way of the camera. But literally, just push these in or pull these sliders in, grab your two 10mm bolts, start them by hand. Don't get a gun on them right away. Not a good idea. You'll rip threads, and then guess what? You get to restart all this. You get to replace that if you do, or the sliders at least. Okay, so these are started by hand. Now you can go ahead and go to your gun of choice, or I wouldn't use a gun. Ratchet of choice is what I meant to say. And you can see how these are wanting to start to rotate on me. Cool. Just snug them down for now until you get both of them tightened up, and then we'll go ahead and finish tightening them. There is a torque spec on them. I can't remember what exactly it is, but as long as they're really snugged down pretty good, you could use blue Loctite on these. I don't, just for the fact that if these were to ever seize into there, that could be a hell of a time to get them off. So now that the top is snugged down, the bottom one, I'm just gonna give it a little bit of something, you know. Same thing up here, and that's it. That's all you need to do. So now it's just a matter of slap the tire back on. My torque spec that I like to do for the lug nuts is about 105 to 115 foot-pounds. I like to meet in the middle, about 110 for each lug nut. And then once we get the tire back on, then what we can do is go press the brake pedal a couple times until it firms up, but in between each time, monitor the level of the brake fluid. That way it doesn't get too low, and then you can run into issues with the master cylinder where you got to bleed that, and let me tell you, that's not fun. So just keep an eye on that brake fluid level, and then yep. So what we're gonna do now is get this tire on. Now that my life is a mess over here, literally battling that slider has got me very unorganized. Okay, so now that we're back from my reorganization, there's different ways to get these tires up. I just lift them up, or you can, you know, have two people. It just sits on there like that. Kind of hold it on the hand. Try to get a lug nut. You might need 3/4 is what I found. You need the winner chicken dinner, or a little bar, which this is not going to cooperate. What a jerk. Oh, there we go. You guys are just watching me mess up so many things. Just get her started a couple of times, move on to the next one, keep the tire on straight. There we go. That one started too. Just get her on a couple of threads. Crisscross pattern is what you want to do. Go ahead and get the next one. Just throw it in there. Just don't go beefing on it right away. You want to make sure it finds its threads. There we go. Found its threads. There we go. Find its threads. Now for these, well, that's the cap. For these, it's going to be too much for, or too big for, or, excuse me, too small for my breaker bar there. So I'm going to re-grab my 3/4. Am I sure? Are we sure? It is 3/4. I don't know. Today's just one of those days. And we'll get this one on there too. Inspect the condition of your lug nuts. Make sure they're still good. If they need to be replaced, this is the time to do them. So there's that one. 3/4 works for all of them. So if you got a gun, it is 3/4. I think we covered that at the very, very beginning. I like to get these very, very snugged. Basically what you want to do is star pattern when you're getting these relatively, I wouldn't say torqued down with the, you know, your ratchet and stuff, but like ready to be torqued, and then go do one final pass with this, get it really, really snug down. And then what you can do finally, make sure there's nothing underneath your car that you don't want under there, like that jack stand, is drop her down. Okay, that's that, Mr. That's That. And so I'm not going to show the process of torquing that down. It's literally the same star pattern. Torque her down. I do it to about 105 to 110, within that range. Now what I'm going to do is make sure my brake fluid level, which is all the way at the top, but that's because that brake piston is all the way, all the way in. So now what I'm going to do is bring my camera assembly, because I have my charging going on. Press the brake pedal. Spongy. Boom. Firm. And I like to hold it. I like to hold it for 10 to 15 seconds. And basically what that does, it's kind of like a check, if you will. You're basically hold that down and you're checking to see if there's any leaks. And one way to tell if there's leaks is if you hold it down and during that 15 seconds, it literally goes to the floor. But that is stiff. So that's perfect. So what I'm going to do now, let's go back to my master cylinder, take a look at the brake fluid, and you can see it's at the perfect level. So that's awesome. There is nothing else further to do brake fluid wise. I made a mess, so I'm going to clean up. I'm definitely going to take this for a test drive to see how she drives with the new pads on, and yeah, go from there.